Hello, everybody, and welcome. It's another episode of Let's Talk Good Broncos. Let's get straight into it. Well, guys, this is a good episode. The Broncos season has finally ended. It was not fun towards the end.
Finally.
Yeah, right. It's finally. That last 2 weeks was terrible. So I don't even think we're going to talk much about this last game. We're just going to discuss the state of the Broncos as a whole. And I think the biggest thing and the most exciting thing is the Broncos are getting new uniforms this year. I don't know. Did you guys see the little concepts that were dropped all over Reddit? Did you guys check those out?
Yeah. Yes, I did.
Yeah. Zach, do you mind pulling those up real quick?
Man, thank God they're still here. I wasn't seeing them for a second, and I got worried that something got screwed up. We got this is only for our YouTube listeners. I imagine podcast people have probably seen it online already, but I did not like the Reddit mock-up much at all. I think the weird like mountain shoulder pads look super goofy. It reminds me of something like you'd see on like a court jester or something. I'm not a fan of it. I don't like the current logo on an all white helmet. I just wasn't a fan of it, but I think the like 3D rendition was better. What made it look more appealing.
Okay. I do kind of like these. I'm not going to lie.
I like it
right
okay.
here.
Can you go back to
here? I think it's pretty gross.
What do you think? That looks terrible. No, great point about the white logo on the white helmet is a disaster. I will say the font on the nameplate very small, and on the front of the jersey, looks like an eye exam.
Like what is it?
Denver.
Okay.
Yeah, you're like D-E-M. It's like, I'm sorry, you need glasses.
Yeah,
we'll write you a prescription immediately.
I don't think they should be spaced out that far. That aspect looks really goofy, but I do like it small. I don't want the Broncos to be one of the teams that because Nike's done this a lot. They just did it to Arizona. They did it to Cleveland. The Seahawks, I guess, just have it on like their like pec, but I don't want like a huge Broncos or like Denver across the nameplate. I'm hoping we don't have that.
Yeah, I think none at all. Most of the classic jerseys don't have anything. It's just the NFL logo on the neckline, and then
we know what team it is.
Yeah,
especially if we have mountains and 5280 plastered all over it.
It's not NBA City Edition jerseys.
We need to retire 5280. I think I'm kind of done with 5280 about everything Denver sports related. The Nuggets did. They ran that course. They killed that. There's no more 5280.
It better be really minor. I guess it's supposed to be on the legs. I should have had the Mario rundown ready on that, but I don't know. I'm with you, Joey. It can't look like it. Better not be like the Nuggets thing where it's just 5280 and that's the whole thing.
Okay, here is my hot take, though, guys. I really think there's only so much you can do with orange and blue. I've seen 1,000 trillion different mock-ups, and I've only seen one I've ever liked. I mean, you guys let me know all the good mock-ups that are out there. There's just not a ton.
Agreed.
Yeah, it seems like the Broncos are very limited. I do kind of like this model right here. Will has a great point with the white horse being on the white helmet. I don't like that. But this is something I've been saying for a while. It's all sweet and nice asking for the new uniforms up until Nike gives you the Jags two-toned helmets. You know what I mean? Like, it could always be worse. And this is what scares me about anybody choosing new uniforms. Like, the obvious answer, everybody knows it. The Broncos fans have been saying it forever. We want the old school logo back, kind of, like a rendition of that at least. And then we kind of want just an older school looking jersey. We like that type of thing going on. That's the mock-up I'm referring to. I think that's the one everyone kind of likes.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the biggest layup that they can do is just go back to either like a replica of the old uniforms or some slight variation off of it. I think the big one that they have to nail is you have to go away from the navy blue to more of a royal blue.
1,000.
It changes the way the orange looks too. It just looks much cleaner, I think.
It does seem like they're keeping the current colors. Let me see if I have the Mario.
That upsets me. I'm not gonna lie.
It does upset me as well. Like the Chargers uniforms got so much better immediately when they started going away from the navy color into the powder blue. Like I think the Dolphins uniforms too. I just think like the more pastel looking jerseys are cooler. I really do. I think they
definitely are. What team, when they wear their throwback, does it look worse than their current jersey? Like what team? Like when Seattle did it, I thought it looked awesome. When Houston did it, it looked great. When Philly did it, it looked great. I don't think, I guess it was Tennessee that did it. I don't think Tennessee should be doing the Houston Oilers jerseys. That's weird.
Right.
But it looks good. Like maybe the creamsicle ones, but I think those are fun to have as an alternate. I don't know. Broncos country has been so loud with like, please just do this. This is what we want. It's pretty simple. That I don't know. If they don't, I'm going to be kind of annoyed because it should not be. This should be the easiest decision ownership ever has to make.
Well, the good news is, guys, that the Broncos will be doing their old school uniforms for a few games next year. So that's something we can look forward to. Not their new ones, but their old school ones. Kind of like we saw, like you mentioned, Zach, like the Titans, Philadelphia, these teams did this year. The Broncos are going to be doing next year. So that's at least something to look forward to, I think, with the uniforms. And I am just interested to see what they have going on because keep in mind, everyone, this is from a random person on Reddit. We really don't know what's going on.
Well, I will say the Mario stuff, like I know he's a friend of the show and everything, but I do.
Can you explain the Mario thing to the listeners real quick? So?
Yeah, I do think he's hearing it from a legit source. He put out there that that's where a lot of this mock-up comes from. Some of it is based off of a Reddit rumor, which I'm kind of with Joey. I don't know how much stock to put in the Reddit thing. I do believe that Mario, with how tied in he is with people inside the Broncos facility, I think he's aware of. I don't think he's seen them as this. I'm reading from a UniWatch article for part of this here. I kind of agree with what he says. I don't think Mario's probably seen the uniforms, but I think he's probably had them described to him. And the notes Mario put out there were rather, they will be updated with the biggest change being the removal of the parentheses stripes on the sides of the uniforms. And the tops will be solid rather than having any side striping. So you're not getting a weird mismatch like you had in the road games last year where it was like white top, blue pants, and the stripes didn't match up. There's also going to be an emphasis on 5280 and the mountains to some extent. That's why we were talking about the 5280 thing. They are also altering the font of the jerseys and the stripe on the helmet. They will also be bringing back the throwbacks that the team wore from 1968 to 1996. He also said they're keeping the logo. The all-white helmet bit came from Reddit. That's the one bit I'm fine with the all white as an alternate. I ended up liking it more than I thought I would. The Broncos logo, at least their current logo, is too white to have an all white helmet all the time. All you're going to see is the mane. I don't like it.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Well, let's move on to the next topic here, guys. And the other thing that really happened in Broncos country since last game is we had the last pressers of George Paton and Sean Payton. Guys, this first one I want to call a lie on, but I'm going to get your opinions anyways. Will, I want to ask you. When asked about Russell Wilson and his future with the team, Sean Payton said, that final decision has not been made yet. And then also George Paton kind of followed up on that and said, yeah, there's still the door's still open. So what do you make about Russell Wilson coming back to the Broncos? Do you think it's true?
No, I don't. I would have to say It's a lie, but probably a lie that you have to make to save face, not only in the locker room or in the media, but maybe like from an NFLPA kind of standpoint. But I think this decision's been made since, if not like the Chiefs game when they originally came to him and asked for him to remove the injury clause, then definitely after the Patriots game when they benched him. It's too much of an important decision, and there's too much money at stake to not have figured it out already.
1,000%. I agree. Zach, what do you think?
I think the door is I think they're kind of lying while telling the truth here. Like, I think the door is open if Russell Wilson agreed to the deal they laid out that Russell Wilson has made it very clear he's not going to agree to. You know what I mean? Like, I think if he suddenly decided, yeah, I'll waive that injury guarantee, there is a possibility maybe some sort of agreement could be reached. That $80 million in dead cap isn't very fun. And, if you did that, you could just have him for one more year and then move on. And like, you kind of keep that flexibility. But again, I don't think Russ is going to do that. These two sides ultimately want opposite things in terms of this contract. Russ wants his long-term security. The Broncos want immediate flexibility. And kind of the only way to square that at this point is a divorce in that marriage.
Yeah, I mean, could you guys imagine Russ coming back after all the stuff that has come out in the media? And we clearly know, like, I'm sitting at home knowing, oh, that guy's on Sean Payton's team. That guy's on Russ' team. Like, there's just no way to me anymore. That all felt like bridge burning to me, that it doesn't seem like it's possible anymore. After that, is hard. It's hard for me to tell. Like, Russ is putting out, Russ's camp is putting out that Sean never adapted his offense towards my skill set. That's really what was going on. And then Sean's side is coming out where it's, players in the locker room really didn't like Russ that much. I don't know. I don't know. I have a really hard time imagining it, even if he agreed to taking that injury clause out, that he could come back. That doesn't seem very possible.
I think that's a fair point. This relationship he's like, I don't get why people think we have a bad relationship, because you benched him and you're having like a very obvious media war against each other. It reminds me of when Ike and Paule, I'm probably butchering that name, broke Geno Smith's jaw, and then the Jets cut him, and then Rex Ryan signed him for the Bills. And then, even though he was like a special teamer, made him the team captain that week for the coin toss. And then when New York media asked Geno Smith about it, or if he took it personally, Geno said, "No, why would I take that personally?" And they said, "Because he punched you in the face." And that's kind of what they hear. Like, yeah, of course we don't think you have a good relationship. You metaphorically punched him in the face. You're having a very obvious fight. I don't know. It just makes sense to go their separate ways at this point. Mm-hmm. I don't know, especially because I do think, just because I can kind of transition into it here, I do think there's maybe a good bit of truth to the players not liking or Russ not being the most popular figure in that Broncos locker room. I was talking to a current player on the defense who told me an interesting tidbit. Russell Wilson. Okay, so look at the team captains here, right? There's one special teams captain, there's two defensive captains, and there's three offensive captains. That's a little weird. I'll get my Brian Windhorst on right now. That's a little weird. Normally it's like two across the board, or maybe like three offense, three defense. The like 3-2-1 is weird. Why would they do that? Because I forget who the captains are now. Mike McGlinchey and Cortland Sutton, I believe. Mike McGlinchey and Cortland Sutton got all the votes. But the optics of Russell Wilson not being a captain were so horrific that they just went, okay, Russ is kind of like a pity captain too, and we'll put the C on his chest. From what I was told, Russell Wilson did not receive a single vote. To be
what? No way.
That is what I was told.
I believe it.
Again, from a current player, they were on defense, so maybe they're wrong, but that is my understanding of the situation.
That's crazy. If that's true, that's crazy. I mean, the 3-2-1 thing is a little weird. The single vote, not a
I think
single
that's
vote, sounds nuts. I do have to say that.
that's the evidence that helps me believe it.
Yeah.
Like if the fact that it's 3-2-1, I'm like, okay, I've never seen a team do that before. That kind of makes sense that you were like, ooh, we got to make Russ a captain too, but we can't like make one of the guys that actually got votes not a captain. Let's take it from Riley Dixon. Who's going to care?
Yeah,
I think that's kind of what happened.
That's poor coaching, in my opinion, on Sean Payton. I think you have to make that look even, or
You have to lie, please.
lie about it. Yeah,
Lie.
I think for future teams, if they're listening, just give the starting quarterback an automatic captain. Like, don't let them vote.
Yeah,
because that can only go badly. Either the players vote on the starting quarterback being the captain, or someone's going to get their feelings hurt. So let's just set aside one. The quarterback is the captain of the team, and everybody else will vote on. But don't leave that up for discussion, because that only goes one way.
I think you nailed that, Will. I mean, you have to come in the locker room before the season even starts and be like, our captain, whoever is starting that week at quarterback is our captain.
Yeah.
That's just it.
Obviously.
That's how you're rolling. I think that's a smart call there. And we do have a super chat I want to get to real quick. John V, he says, did Vance do enough to keep his job? If not, who would you be interested in? Zach, what do you think?
I think he's done enough. I think the defensive turnaround was pretty impressive. And once he started doing his thing, I think it worked out. I think you still got to evaluate him next year. I don't think he has a ton of security, but I'm not trying to push him out the door. Now, if Nick Saban was like, hey, I love coaching, I love defense, or Bill Belichick, they're like, oh man, I love coaching defense. The grind of being a head coach, the recruiting trail, the being the CEO of a NFL franchise, it's too tiring for me. I just want to be a defensive coordinator. I would love to do that. But I don't know. I'm not trying to push Vance Joseph out the door. If we were being like really serious, God, I don't know. Like Brandon Staley's one that comes to mind. I think he flamed out it in Los Angeles for good reason. I wouldn't want him as a head coach. But I do think some of the defensive game planning stuff he did was really impressive. Like, it's no secret that Chargers defense is pretty poor from a talent perspective, and he built that, and he deserves blame for that. But like, his scheme blew up the Dolphins offense last year when it looked unstoppable. And then everyone implemented that scheme and it kind of broke it. And there's been a couple times over the past 3-4 years he's done that. I think he's still a very like cutting edge, influential defensive mind. And I think if you just went, Staley, you're just in charge of game plans now, it could be beneficial.
Yeah, I'm going to say Rex Ryan just because I want it for the content. That would be great stuff. If I would fight for a media credential to ask that guy silly questions next year, that would be amazing.
Yeah, you do the whole Wes Welker routine.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It would be great. That would be very fun, and we'd have a lot to talk to about this podcast. Moving on here. George Payton said, we're not going to be the first. We're not going to be in on that first wave of free agents this year. I think it just kind of makes sense with obviously Russell Wilson's contract. This is whether he is cut or kept. But I guess the question to you guys is, does this like make this offseason less exciting to you?
I kind of maybe a little less exciting, I guess, but I'm not any less optimistic. I think you win free agency kind of on the second and third day with the mid-tier signings, and they went big on free agency and last year, and mixed results, I think it'd be fair to call it.
Very much.
But yeah, you kind of saw this too with when Elway was GM. And they had an all-time free agent class in 2014 with DeMarcus Ware and Talib and Emmanuel Sanders and TJ Ward. I don't know if I can think of a better one by any team. And then 2015, they had this really dialed down free agency wave where they get a couple guys. I think they get like Owen Daniels and Darian Stewart who are not very heralded signings, but end up being, key contributors to a Super Bowl winning team. So this is just kind of like, this is the cycle, I think, of building a team. And I think that makes sense. And I certainly do believe them given the financial constraints.
Zach, I definitely do believe them as well. I think that's Zach, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it makes it less exciting, but just because Jesus, the last 2 off seasons have been exciting. Like, I mean, this is very rare. There's been, I don't know, 5, 6 trades, and probably not even that many, probably more like 2 or 3 trades of a quarterback in NFL history that warranted multiple first-round draft picks, not of like a draft pick, but of the actual like established veteran quarterback. That's extremely rare. That's going to be a big headline. That same offseason, they brought in the absolute goofiest head coach ever, which also kind of created some excitement and some intrigue and some headlines. And then this past offseason, they had a lot of money to work with still. So they were in on that first wave of free agents, but also they became like the third franchise ever, third franchise ever to trade a first round pick for a head coach. I mean, it doesn't happen. So yeah, I think relative to being like an extreme outlier, it's got to dial back some, but I also just think that's like the health of this team. Like the roster is not in a great place. They're horribly overextended. That's why they're $20 million, no matter $20 million over the cap, no matter what they do with Russell Wilson. They need to stop spending so much. I think they can improve some areas around this roster, and there's some creative cap moves they probably will do to make a couple signings, but they're going to be like the Chris Manhurt signings. I think they're going to be role players.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think you kind of nailed it. You can't do it every year because the Broncos for the last 2 years have just been doing stuff that you shouldn't do ever. Sometimes,
yeah, they're racking up debt. They like had a manic episode shopping spree for 2 years straight.
Thank you, George. Thank you for taking a break. We really do appreciate it right now. We're looking for a boring offseason. The first wave just means that we're not going to trade for Russell Wilson and then hand him the massive contract. That's what he's getting to with that one. What do you guys see the team doing this offseason just in general, or what do you guys want from this team? Just not necessarily free agents, just in general. Give me some wants. What do you think this team needs? Zach, you're muted.
God fucking damn it. I want some wide receivers. I want some weapons. Actually, that's what I want. The Broncos offense has been so low wattage forever. Like this past year, where I think we're all left wanting from the offense is a top 2 offense since 2014. That's crazy. This offense is like very unimpressive. And we've been through an explosion of offensive production and then like the scale back of the offensive production all throughout that like 2 eras of NFL football. And the Broncos are still without like a fun offense in that entire span. Goodness. I honestly think Sean Payton can build a good offense, an exciting offense around a mediocre quarterback. See Teddy Bridgewater, see Taysom Hill. Give us some weapons. Let's see some fun. Let's see some pop. I like Cortland Sutton. Hopefully Javonte Williams heals and that solves the running back conundrum, but I don't know. They need something that scares defenses. I don't think there's a single aspect of this offense that scares defenses right now.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I do think that's a great point, Zach. Like the Broncos just don't have a ton of stars on offense is what I would say. What do you think, Will?
I would agree. Real quick, I want to talk about Underdog Fantasy, if that's okay with you guys. Today's episode is sponsored by Underdog Fantasy. Underdog has added Scorchers to their Pick'em contests. If you see the little tiny pepper next to a player's stat, that's a Scorcher pick. Add those to your normal Pick'em entries to boost your payouts. Your normal max is 10xing your deposit. It's Depending on how many scorchers you add, you can up to 100x your money. That's a lot. They've also added, I'm not wearing my reading glasses, Pick'em Champions, which is live in Alabama, Tennessee, Wyoming, Mississippi, and now Missouri and West Virginia. The last two are new. Players create a Pick'em entry like usual. You pick 2 to 5 players from at least 2 teams, select your entry amount, and submit. It's very simple. If you get the most correct picks in your contest, you win your share of the champion's prize. Sign up at Underdog with our link below or code Let's Ride. Make your first deposit and they will match you up to $100. Once again, that's code Let's Ride. Do we get a disclaimer? Can we disclaim? There you go. You've been disclaimed.
I love the disclaimer, man. That's my thing right there. I am looking, though, for some scorchers on the Broncos. I don't think the Broncos have had any scorchers this year. I think it's been pretty hard to lower to where they actually think they would have been. Like, what does a Javonte scorcher look like this year? Like 4 points.
Gee.
That's what I'm saying. We need some
higher than 2.5 yards per carry.
Exactly. The Broncos do need more scorchers, man. Zach, I think you nailed that earlier. It's just like more weapons. Courtland Sutton's great. I really like Courtland Sutton, but like Will just said, we need a running back that's going to do more than average like 3 yards per carry, especially behind what I thought was an actual okay line. I don't think it's the best. I don't think it's the worst. I think it's an okay offensive line at least. And I think Javonte's produced under worse offensive lines. I will say that. So I just better run game. And then outside of Sutton, Dulcich was hurt the whole year. You need some from the tight end position. They pretty much got nothing there receiving. And your wide receiver 2 and 3 really didn't catch the ball at all this year. More weapons is huge. Just keep adding to the offense, especially if the plan is to move on from Russ. Make it comfortable for whoever the next quarterback's going to be. That's what I would say I'm looking for this offseason. If it's not quarterback, it's still offense. Give me weapons.
Yeah, I think it's underrated how poor the weapons are here. Like defenses weren't forced to play loaded boxes because they didn't respect the run game, and the Broncos couldn't punish them on that. And they faced man coverage at a really high rate, and they couldn't punish them on that because they don't have guys that can win their matchups. Defenses are very content with just lining up and playing the Broncos, and they'll win their matchups. You don't have to do much complex around this offense as it currently exists, and probably next year, because the quarterback isn't going to be some superstar unless they hit a grand slam on their draft pick. The way to add some juice into this passing attack and also set up the next potential franchise quarterback for success, help his development. The line's good right now. Again, you had an okay quarterback, an okay line, and you had no offensive ability because of how poor the talent was. You're setting up the next quarterback for failure if you don't upgrade that.
Yeah, I totally agree. I thought for me it was crazy watching the national championship and watching Washington, the University of Washington, have a wide receiver core better than an NFL wide receiver core.
Yes.
And that was probably their worst game of the season. And it was still, leaps and bounds better than what the Broncos are throwing out there. So they absolutely need more juice outside, especially.
That is funny, Will. I do agree with you. I think that Washington, if you were to replace Washington's wide receiver core with the Broncos probably have better results with Washington. So. That's crazy. But I think you're right. They have 2 wide receivers that could go in the first round this year and another that's going to get drafted. Like they're really loaded. And then the last question I just kind of want to throw at you guys. Are you guys excited for the future of this team? Every time I go on social media, everyone's all doom and gloom. Are you guys excited? I'm kind of looking for excitement, but let me know anyways.
Are you going to be negative, Will?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
So go ahead.
I just wanted to make sure we weren't going to close on a dull mood. If you were going to be down, I was going to let you go first. I'm feeling very excited, if I'm being honest. I understand why people are really concerned. I think this might be a disappointing wake-up call to a lot of people. The Broncos have been in this position for 2 years. Like the Russell Wilson money isn't getting burnt this offseason. It got burnt 2 years ago, and it sucks that the Broncos are in this spot, but now you're halfway through. Don't view it as like you're starting this miserable trek. No, you're halfway through. And now you're part of the half where you're not looking for a long-term solution. You're through the half where you're stuck with people talk about how they're tired of the Case Keenums and they're tired of the Joe Flaccos and they're tired of all those types of non-answers at quarterback for the Broncos. Those guys at least gave you flexibility. The Broncos were at least in constant search of an answer. They weren't stuck with Case Keenum for multiple seasons on end. That's what was staring them down the barrel. So if you're tired of those options, you should be thrilled. The Broncos just chose not to damn themselves to that reality and to instead search for something better, to search for a Justin Herbert of their own, to search for a Patrick Mahomes of their own, so they can compete in this AFC West at some point over the next decade. I think some people will be pessimistic about what Sean Payton provided this year. I think it looks awesome. I think he's a very good head coach. I think it's fair to maybe wonder about some team building elements. But the Broncos have head coach sorted. I think they have ownership sorted. I've talked about there's 4 franchise pillars: your quarterback, your head coach, your GM, and your ownership. I think the Broncos still have 2 question marks, but they have, in my opinion, 2 big check marks right now. And I don't think that's been the case since 2014, 2015, maybe. They didn't have ownership back then. So yeah, since like 2014. That's a great spot to be. I feel very optimistic about the future.
I love it. I think that's well said. First of all, you had me wanting to run through a brick wall for the first half of that. I think that
you could have kept the second half, is what Will just said.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's good. We'll drop it on the. We'll when we put out the social media clip.
Swell to a crescendo there and maybe start yelling or something. But I think, no, if you can't get excited to watch your favorite football team, like, you got to reevaluate things. Yeah. I think we all spend a little bit too much time on Twitter, and Twitter is kind of a breeding ground for negativity and a negative feedback loop. Like, it's football. Just get excited to watch your favorite team no matter what. I don't think I've gone into a season not tricking myself into being excited one way or another since like the Jay Cutler trade. And even that one I kind of came around on by the time week 1 rolled around. So yeah, we all have to lie to ourselves in some regards, but there are just a ton of things, and Zach said it better than me, to get excited about. I think what I'm looking forward to is just kind of settling on a quarterback. Like, just identify a guy, pick a guy, whether you trade up for him, that's one option. Wait for someone to fall at 12. Obviously, that's another option. Just get a guy. And that's something – the unknown is always more exciting than the reality of most quarterbacks who get picked. So we can hang our hat on that, because I think they're going to end up finding somebody that they like. And you pair that with Sean Payton, a guy who's got a great history with quarterbacks. It's a recipe for excitement in my book.
1,000%. It's the reason why the Broncos traded a first-round pick for Sean Payton, exactly to find a quarterback and make the offense good. So as long as the Broncos made a good decision, head coach, I trust their process in finding their new quarterback. And who can't be excited about a young quarterback? That's like the most fun thing ever when you have they
don't even have to be good. That's the thing. They don't have to be good. Like, I was excited about Drew Lock.
Yeah, exactly.
It was more fun like waiting for Drew Lock to play than actually watching him play. Right. Or like the 3 games or so that he was good in 2019 was the highlight of the last like 6 years.
Well, that's the thing. It's fun. It's fun to have that, like, not knowing there's 3 states of quarterbacking in the NFL. You got a guy, you don't know, and you don't got a guy. And the Broncos were in the they don't have one department. And not only that, but like, they couldn't be more in that department. This is a bottom 2 quarterback acquisition in terms of like how successful it's going in NFL history. I think Deshaun Watson's probably the only one in NFL history going worse right now.
Yeah.
So when people say, well, what if the Broncos miss? You know, what if the next journeyman, you know, it is just like Case Keenum or whatever, you'll still be better because that'll be washed away in a year. Everyone will forget about it. It won't be one of the most devastating quarterback acquisitions of all time. Again, the Broncos really hurt the franchise with this Russell Wilson move. It's already done, happened 2 years ago. Like I said before, whatever they're going to do from here on out, it can't be this bad. Like this, again, they have reached the most extreme outlier of like 20 years from now, people will be talking about this trade. When like the next horrible trade happens, you know, that's the legacy they've built right now. Whatever the next thing they do, it would be really difficult to top what they've already done. I really think it can only be up from here. I think they've reached rock bottom. They had no ownership. They made a horrific move. They had no head coaching answer. They had no GM answer. Now they've got 2 out of 4. That's fingers crossed.
No, great point. And on the heels of, like you said, a bottom 2 trade in NFL history, which I would have to agree with, they still, you know, got their most wins in a season since 2016, which does say a little bit, you know, that speaks to what was going on for 7 years. But no, with all the midst of all that disarray, you have to point to Sean Payton as the guy who kind of raises all ships and was good enough to, you know, get them through everything that happened this year and still emerge with really a chance at the end to have a winning season. I know it didn't happen, but it came away with 8 wins after a 5-12 season last year. That's just a very simple reason for excitement right there.
Yes, sir.
Can you imagine like Nathaniel Hackett trying to address the locker room after a 70-20 loss? Like imagine how far south this could have gone. Like, and I admit that the start was very ugly, but with how bad the defense was, with how bad things started, for them to have this turnaround is also an incredibly positive sign. And I love that you highlighted the wins because they won a lot of games. Where was the good position group on this team? Like, where's the thing you're going? That's what led us to victory. The running backs underperformed. The wide receiver room, we just highlighted how that needs help. Tight ends, we did the same. The offensive line was good, but it wasn't like the Great Wall of Dallas or anything. Defensive front needs a lot of help. The linebackers need help. Cornerback needs help. Safety was incredibly beat up this season. Special teams was good. Did special teams lead them to 8 wins? I don't think so. I think it was I really think it can only be up from here. And next year is probably going to be very similar, but it's going to be setting the foundation for what is to come. They are so talent deficient right now. They are coming from such a bad place. It would be so hard for the next step to not be a positive one.
Yeah. For sure, guys. And I just wanted to make sure we ended it on a positive note because I think there are stuff to look forward to. And I think both you guys did a really good job of highlighting that. But Will, before we sign out here, where can they find your work, man?
Just go to That's Good Sports. I think we had power rankings this week, ranking all the teams that are playing this weekend. We've got a bandwagon guide if your team is not in the playoffs, which includes the 3 of us. So if you're a Broncos fan, it's a good one to check out. And then we've got some Pete Carroll content as well. And the usual winners and losers from the wild card round will drop next week. So stick around.
Cool. And guys, please check out Let's Talk Broncos. That's where you can find Zach and I's work. Just check us out there if you guys like it. So until next time, guys, go Broncos.